Once we started, and once the first day of action, uh, it just became energy and all the anxiety. There was no room for it. It just became this great passion project, and I ended up enjoying it.
Well, on top of starring in and directing this movie, I know you were also the writer, right?
I co-wrote it with my friend and collaborator, yeah, Mark Stegman. Yes,
So where did the inspiration for this come from? Just how did you guys first come up with the story?
he's a writer who wrote on Men of a Certain Age, a show that I did after Everybody Loves Raymond, and we when this is how long ago it was when that show got canceled. We both decided to write a screenplay, or I wanted to, and I asked him if he wanted to. And the only story I had in mind was the only thing I knew was I wanted to make it about an Italian family from Queens. I wanted to write what I know, and specifically, actually, because I grew up in an Italian family, but not the traditional family that like you see in the movie. And that was more like my wife. I married into that family. So for 35 years, I've been to all those parties and the weddings and the dinner at noon, all the traditional stuff. And I wanted to do a story about that world. And I didn't know exactly what it was going to be about. And as we were writing it at the time, it was my son who was graduating high school who played on the basketball team. And I got such a thrill going to the games and, being proud of him and also basking in the attention, if I'm being honest, as pathetic as that is. I don't get enough attention in my real life. I have to get it there. But when it ended, I was sad. I knew he wasn't going to play in college, and it was a sad moment that I had to accept. And I knew I'd be okay, but I just thought, well, this should be the story about a guy who this is all he has. He has a very he feels very small in his real life and not quite visible in his family. And how does he deal with the fact that this is going to come to an end? So that was the starting point, and then we went from there, and it expanded into to what it turned into. Yeah.
This was your first time directing, right?
Yes.
This was your directional debut. Oh wow, that's awesome. So
Yes.
did you happen to reach out to anyone? Because I mean, you've been in the industry for a long time. Did you reach out to any directors that you knew for any insight here?
I talked to Judd Apatow a little. I talked to a couple of directors that I worked with. Alex Lehman, who directed me in Paddleton, a movie called Paddleton. Um, and not to name drop, but I actually was lucky when I was looking for producers. I was interviewing with a couple of producers, and one of them was the producer of A Star Is Born with Lady Gaga, and yeah, and he, when I told him about my fear about directing and acting, he brought up Bradley Cooper, and he connected me with Bradley Cooper. So I actually got to talk to him a little bit about not only about directing but also acting in the movie that you're directing in, and how that works. So yeah, I got some advice, and um, everything else just scared the hell out of me.
Well, I mean, there were so many different aspects to this film. Leo is definitely a very complicated character. So, when you were kind of like writing out his journey, putting this all together, what was something that you really wanted him to learn throughout this film?
Well, we tried to show that he was um, on the surface, it looks like he's doing what a good father should do, and that's try to help his son have more in life than what he had. And someone could look at that and say, well, that's why he goes to the extent that he does to try to get this kid, a college education or whatever. But also, that wasn't his only motive. We wanted to make sure that there was a bit of selfishness in there also. He was doing it for himself as well. And I think what we wanted to, the arc for his character was just to get to a point where he realizes, he may not be hearing cheers for his son and receiving the glory that comes with that, but he's still he still has raised this kid to be a good kid, and he's gonna get that internally just because just watching his son prosper in whatever way he can. So we wanted for him to get to that point where he realizes he has a lot in life. He doesn't need the cheers from a crowd to feel like he himself is somebody, and also that his son is achieving anything in his life. It doesn't have to be basketball. It can be whatever this kid tries for. That was one goal, and then we had a lot of little goals for all the other characters also. The wife character, my wife actually went through breast cancer. She's a breast cancer survivor, and we had a little arc for her. We wanted to represent, someone going through that and realizing that you never really get rid of that fear, and how to live through it, and how to not be afraid to reach out for help if you need it. Little things like that. We had little arcs for each character that we tried to put in without making it too on the nose.
Well, one character that I really loved was Danny. She definitely surprised me. Yeah, she was, I really loved her character. I really love what you guys did with her. When you were creating her, what was kind of the end game there? Like, who did you want this person to be?
Well, I mean, the main goal was for her, because she breaks my son's heart, and it could easily turn into someone that you dislike, and that's the last thing we wanted. We wanted this person to be a person who's, she kind of knows what she wants, and she's driven, and yet she's still a sweet person. And listen, it doesn't always end up, the guy doesn't always get the girl at the end. And we wanted that to be okay. And we wanted her, we wanted the audience to appreciate that she's doing what she wants. And yes, our hero boy is getting his heart broken, but that's life. That's life, and there's no one to blame in it. And they're both going to be better people for it. And I think we pulled it off, and I think she pulled it off definitely. I mean, she was awesome. Yeah.
There was one thing I was curious about with Styx, and that was, obviously his heart is in poetry, but did he actually have any passion for basketball, or was that just something that he felt like, he needed to do?
I think he had initially an attraction towards it, and he enjoyed it. And I think maybe as it went along, he could see how much more it meant to Leo, and he probably didn't want to lose that connection. I don't know that his heart and soul was 100% into the basketball, but I don't think he disliked it. I think it helped bring him out of his shell a little bit. But I think a lot of it was he was aware how much it meant to Leo also at the same time.
Well, just overall, how has this process been for you? With this being your first feature, with you wearing so many different hats. I mean, you're a director, a writer, a star. So, how's it been? What's the experience been like?
Well, now that I'm a little removed from it, I want to do it again. Mark and I are trying to write another script. We're not going to take that long to write it, hopefully. But I will say, leading up to it, it was very nerve-wracking and very stressful. Once we were in it, and once we started, and once the first day of action, it just became energy and all the anxiety. There was no room for it. It just became this great passion project, and I ended up enjoying it. But the lead up was quite stressful. My agent is really the one who talked me into directing. And there was so many times where I was like cursing him out because I was like, I cannot do this. And I will say now that it's said and done, I'm glad he made me do it. And I would do it again. If I write another script that I'm passionate about, I will do it again. And I don't think it'll be as stressful the second time around, but who knows?
So then do you have, you mentioned something, but did you say that you have something upcoming that you're hoping to direct?
Oh, no, we're just writing. We're writing.
Just writing, got it.
We're in the very early stages of writing. Not now because there's a writer's strike. Although no one's paying us, so we're not working for anybody. But we have ideas and we want to try to do it again. Yeah. But it's in the very early stages. Yeah.
What about on the acting front? Do you have any new projects coming up there?
If and when the writer's strike ends, hopefully we're looking at a show. I probably shouldn't get into it because we're still negotiating and talking about it. But another project we're working on is a biopic for. Now you're way too young to. Maybe but Jimmy Valvano. Do you know who Jimmy Valvano is?
I do not.
Okay. When you're done here, go to YouTube and YouTube Jimmy V speech. They call him Jimmy V. ESPN, the ESPYs. He gave a very famous speech the first year of the ESPY Awards, and he was a coach, a basketball coach in the '80s, and he won the championship in spectacular style. They were underdogs, and unfortunately, 10 years later, he passed from cancer. But he gave a very emotional speech like a couple months before he died, and we're going to do his story. We're working on his story. Me playing Jimmy V.
That's awesome. I will definitely look into that because now I'm very curious.
It's good. It's a nice emotional speech and it's fun. Yeah.